So, traditional Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. To understand atheist and agnostic as well as many types.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Preston.
Happy New Year.
Again.
This is the beginning of our 4th year.
Yes. Holy Watermelon has seen 4 calendar years. Yeah. 4 calendar years.
Yeah, we haven't hit our 3-year mark yet, but this is the beginning of our 4th year. It's great.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
I feel prosperous, some might even say.
Well, that's good. It's the power of Jesus.
Name it and claim it on today's episode of
The Holy Watermelon Podcast.
Praise be. We're enthusiastically talking about prosperity gospel today. What a great way to start the new year is how you can become millionaires. Maybe.
Right. Maybe. I remember when we first started talking about this podcast project, you made me watch
John Oliver,
yeah.
Highly recommend. Don't pause the podcast. Finish the podcast. And then go look up on YouTube John Oliver and the Prosperity Gospel. It's a great supplementary resource to this podcast. We'll link it in the show notes.
It'll be great. He's not a religious scholar, but he is a great comedian, and he definitely knows what he's talking about most of the time on this subject.
Oh, there you go. So what the heck is prosperity gospel, Preston?
I mean, in short, it's the idea that God wants you to be rich, and you just need to want it for yourself, and then you will be rich. And if you're a good Christian, there's no reason it should fail.
Wow.
Yeah. There's so many problems with this.
Well, first of all, I was going to say, what if you're not a good Christian? Am I automatically eliminated?
Yeah.
I guess so. What if you're a bad Christian and wealthy? Well, we'll talk about them later, I guess.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, you can't be as rich as some of these pastors and be a good person.
No.
You can't do both.
The prosperity gospel is of course, an American-born interpretation of the gospels that teaches wealth is the will of God, and that, as Preston said, if you're a good Christian, you will receive financial blessings.
Yeah. I mean, there is a story in the Hebrew Bible about this fella named Job, who was faithful through all kinds of trials, terrible, terrible things. His family was destroyed. Everything he owned was taken from him. And because he didn't revile God but stayed faithful, he got all of that back. More kids, beautiful daughters, and twice as much wealth as he had before.
Wow.
The story of Job is fiction.
Yes.
That's a really important detail that a lot of people don't believe. And it really backs up, kind of, this idea that it will and must work for everybody.
I've just started reading Job, as you know. And I'm not that far in yet, but I'm pretty sure it's also hyperbolic.
It's fiction, so it doesn't need to
like
exaggerate.
I know. Well, yes, but it is very,
it's
you're
quite
right,
extreme.
The worst trials.
It is, all of the worst things.
It is, I think, meant to be that extreme in its...
Absolutely. The book of Job is what we call wisdom literature, where you really dive into the good philosophical questions of why do bad things happen to good people. And that's it. It's just an exploration of thought. It's not an actual narrative of a real person and all of his experiences.
All right. I hope not. Because then he probably would have actually killed himself like he thinks about.
There's a decent chance.
Yeah.
Because that happens often in the real world.
Yeah.
But who knows?
You know. So prosperity gospel came about because of the intersection of several different religions, thought groups in America in the sort of mid to late 90s. Mid to late
1900s?
1900s. 20th
it's
century.
New, but it's not that new.
20th century. Wow. The mid to late 20th century is what my brain wanted to explain.
This is, I I think it started a little bit pre-war, pre-Second World War, but really got its foundation after the war and then just kept getting bigger ever since.
That's true. Yeah. So the one place I guess all prosperity gospel churches are Pentecostal churches, but not all Pentecostal churches are prosperity gospel churches. I'm going to say it.
Yep.
I've said it in several episodes. All squares are rectangles. Not all rectangles are squares.
Yeah.
I should make a t-shirt. The number of times I've said that on this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum.
No group is monolithic. There's variation in every group. As long as you got more than 3 people, there's some disagreements.
Wow.
That's the way it goes.
We will do a full episode on Pentecostalism one day, maybe this year. But in brief, Pentecostalism is a charismatic Christian denomination, which means they believe in an active and present Holy Spirit and spiritual gifts like discernment, speaking in tongues, and healings. This is where we really see the idea of having a close personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Comes from the Pentecostal movement. You don't have that in groups like Catholicism.
I mean, sometimes it's not traditionally preached
I
from
think
behind
it's
a Catholic
become
altar.
so mainstream. Other denominations have, but
Yeah.
well, they're often quite fundamental in their beliefs. The Pentecostal movement really got a hold after the 1960s when a whole bunch of hippies were burnt out from too many drugs and music festivals, and they really latched onto the idea of the charismatic and the speaking in tongues and faith healings and that sort of community. Anyone who was kind of into the new age stuff and then realized it was, too much LSD for too many years and wanted to go back to more traditional living, they still like the vibe of the Pentecostal church.
Yeah, good times. Somebody has a little conniption fit in the aisle and everyone's just like, This is a good thing.
Shamala, hamala. Shamala, hamala.
Yeah. Mesmerism finds its way in here a little bit.
Ooh.
Yeah. Phineas Quimby was a mesmerist and a healer, which,
Which means
is
grifter.
useful.
Oh,
I mean, almost always.
almost always. If someone's business card says mesmerist, don't give them your money.
Right?
Unless you're hiring them for a children's birthday party.
Mesmerism is hypnotism. They're the same thing. So don't go to a hypnotist for help unless they've been trained in something else as well. There's no such thing as Western medicine versus Eastern medicine. You either have medicine or stuff that isn't proven to work yet. I think it was Tim Minchin who famously repeats that fairly often.
To mention, relevant, Judas and Jesus Christ Superstar.
What a win.
What? Well, just tying it into all our episodes.
Absolutely. Also, hilarious guy.
My cousin's orchestra performed with Tim Minchin.
Yeah?
Super cool.
That is super
Shout
cool.
out to Heritage Orchestra.
All right.
Just digressions left and right. All right, tell me about Phineas Quimby, Preston.
So, the New Thought movement isn't really a religion, but it's a philosophical set of ideas that attach themselves to religion pretty effectively, I suppose. And Phineas Quimby really launched this all. And it's a lot like The Secret, where if you will something to happen hard enough, because you have the power of Jesus in you, because you are divine, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I kind of felt it was a bit like Hermeticism and Christianity had a little baby.
A little bit.
And that's the New Thought movement.
I mean, Hermeticism isn't itself fully divorced from Christianity either. So it's like cousins making a baby.
I was going to say, you can have a baby with your cousin, Preston.
Yeah. And what happens when too many generations of having cousins make babies?
Well, then we end up with the prosperity gospel. This abomination of... Wow.
I think it's an apt
this
comparison.
analogy that isn't in our notes, but has come about from a conversation.
Yeah. some people do think that the New Thought movement is part of the occult. Of course, as we mentioned before, if somebody's throwing around this word, there's a very good chance they don't know what it means.
I like the irony of it, though.
Of course. There are 4 core beliefs that most people agree on within this New Thought movement. The first is that God or infinite intelligence is supreme, universal, and everlasting. Pretty fair. Right? A lot of religions are pretty on board with this idea. The second is that divinity dwells within each person, that all people are spiritual beings.
Okay, that's a bit Brahma, but sure.
Sure. It's not terribly foreign to the Christian idea either.
Yeah.
The third is the highest spiritual principle is loving one another unconditionally and teaching and healing one another. Love your neighbor, hope for their best, help them be healed. So far, we haven't deviated far from Christianity. So that's good.
Yeah.
And the fourth is that our mental states are carried forward into manifestation and become our experience in daily living, which is true to a point. If you're going to be positive all the time, positivity will be your experience. But wishing for money every day doesn't mean money's going to fall into your lap.
Yeah, and this is where we get into, like you said, Hermeticism or The Secret, good vibes.
Yeah. So, layers?
Spectrums?
Yeah, it's not a crazy idea, but it's one that really lends itself to inappropriate manipulation, I think.
Yeah. Then we have the Word of Faith Ministries, which started in the 1970s in America and teaches that speech is a way to access faith.
You got to do that affirmative action. You have to do a thing, and saying is doing, so perfect.
And this ties in with the charismatic movement and eventually led to televangelism and televangelism both on radio and TV.
Yeah. Some of the guys we're going to talk about later are huge in TV and radio.
I mean, that's like where they really got a hold.
Yeah.
Again, it's like I'm gonna mention The Secret one last time, but this name it and claim it, like I showed it at the beginning of the episode. If you speak your desires and then keep your covenants with God on top of that, God will bless you. So if you pray for money and you're a good Christian, there's no reason God won't give you money.
Except God doesn't have money.
What? He created money, Preston.
I don't know if that's a fair statement either.
He created everything. Sorry, I'm being facetious. But I can see how you could do that, those mental gymnastics,
Sure.
without being facetious.
Yeah, so terrible things. Televangelism started in America, of course, as all of this really seems to have happened here a little close to home. And it allowed pastors to gain massive followings as their audience spread across the entire continent. Not just because people were moving around, but because the digital age, well, actually, it was mostly analog and radio waves. So it's even pre-digital age. Bad use of words. But yeah, radio made it super easy to talk to thousands of people at once. TV made it even easier.
Yeah, this use of media, if not digital age, the media age was starting.
Exactly. So, super convenient. Mm-hmm. And all you got to do is be charismatic, tell people what they want to hear, and sound good doing it, and you'll make money. That's what they tell me anyway.
Well, and then, right? No, I mean, we're seeing this even more now post-COVID, but the confines of space, location, and time are all gone. I have definitely watched a sermon at 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. And I wonder, I didn't actually look into this, but now my brain's going, just like you pass the collection plate at church. Obviously, that's why these pastors are asking for money.
I don't do that.
I know, but most Christian churches do, Preston.
Okay.
I've just passed it along.
Of course. You don't make change or get a little something for yourself?
Oh, I should.
I think that'd be really funny to try and just come in prepared, put a little sticker on the tray as it goes by of take some if you need some.
Take a penny, leave a penny. So that's why these televangelists ask for money, because they'd ask for money in church as well. But I wonder if they captured people who maybe wouldn't normally donate, because now it's very private. No one knows if you're donating or not. And you might just get some sad, lonely person at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Again, that would never maybe even make it to church.
Somebody hoping for a miracle.
Right.
Offer a little bit more.
Things to think about. And,
right.
I mean, I don't know if there's any. They don't release their financial statements. That's half the problem. But it would be interesting to know.
Yeah, and it's tricky to audit cash donations, especially if you don't have a little slip in there saying Preston donated $50.
Yeah, and I guess in the early 70s through 90s, most people would donate cash, maybe check.
Yeah, there'd be checks for sure. But I think cash in
cash
that
in
collection
anymore.
tray. Yeah, I mean, we've been telling people for a long time, don't send cash in the mail.
Unless it's to the Holy Watermelon Podcast P.O. Box. I'm kidding. We don't have a P.O. Box. If it works for Creflo Dollar, Preston, it can work for us.
Right.
So how do these preachers and their congregants interpret the Bible to get these beliefs?
Well, like most religious groups, you have to ignore some of the book. But the idea comes that God wants to bless you. There's passages like, if your son comes to you asking for a fish, you don't give him a rock. That's actually, I'm combining two different parts of the same
Even Preston's
thing anyway.
making an interpretation.
You don't give him an eel or a snake instead of a fish. So you would give him the fish that he's asking for. And since God is better than you are, God is also going to give good gifts and give us what we ask for, apparently. It's nice, but that's not what Jesus was talking about. He wasn't talking about ask for money, get money. When you actually listen to the laws that are given to the nation of Israel before Jesus and then the teachings of Jesus afterwards, it's not about get rich. It's about take care of your community, which in a capitalist society is easy to do if you have money and are willing to part with it. Problem is these churches are collecting money and not helping people.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, generally they believe the whole evangelical, Pentecostal, Protestant tradition about having a relationship with Jesus rather than relying on the ordained ministry of, say, the Catholic tradition. But, you get to make things up on your own when you split from another group. So you get some freedom there.
There you go. Kate Bowler, an expert on the prosperity gospel, says that many followers of the movement don't necessarily want yachts and millions of dollars and mansions. They just want a break from the hardships of life.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
She says, this is a direct quote, "The prosperity gospel looks at the world as it is and promises a solution. It guarantees that faith will always make a way. If you believe and you leap, you will land on your feet. If you believe, you will be healed."
Sometimes you leap and land on your face.
Not in the prosperity gospel, Preston.
No, never. The thousands of people who give their money to churches and still live in poverty with great discomfort, have their homes taken from them. Yeah.
I should also point out that the prosperity gospel is heavily criticized even by the broader Pentecostal community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for good reason. It's not what Jesus had outlined at all.
We have some counterpoints to that, Preston.
Okay.
John Avanzini proclaimed on a TBN program that Jesus had a nice house, a big house, and Jesus was handling big money and even more, get this, designer clothes. Because there were fashion designers in Israel.
So I've had some
In 20
frustration with people
CE.
saying that Jesus was homeless. There's no reason to believe Jesus was homeless. But also, to say he had a big, real nice house, was handling big money, seems pretty unlikely.
I feel like he was dirtbagging it as he was traveling around, though.
Probably.
As one does. Lives out of a van with his bandmates.
Like Robbie Williams' song, Jesus in a Camper Van.
Oh, yeah, probably. I don't know that song, but it sounds right.
It's a cute song from like 20 years ago.
Nice. I took this directly from Wikipedia, so citation. From the Word of Faith page. So it says it is argued that Jesus and the apostles had worldly wealth, owned homes and businesses. And here are the arguments, which we're going to see if Preston can rebuke, that have been offered for this claim. So number one, Jesus was able to travel without working to earn a living for 3 years. I mean, I can't do that.
So the cost of travel is reduced significantly when you do it by foot.
Yeah, but you still need food and a place to lay your head.
Yeah. The law in Israel required all people who grew food to leave some for homeless people and beggars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, if you're, a nice person and helping people out, there's a decent chance they'll even invite you into their home for a meal, maybe even a nice enough place to put your head down for the night. So you can do this for free.
Okay.
You don't have to be rich.
References by Jesus and the apostles to owning homes.
I don't know how that's proof of wealth.
I mean, in this day and age, Preston, it's
sure,
hard
it costs
to
a lot to own a home now. Life was a lot different when there was, a billion people total on the planet. And we're talking about a time when there wasn't even that many. So real estate was cheaper. Building a house, took a little bit of work, but you usually did it yourself or got your friends to do it, kind of like the Amish do. I don't think owning a home is that big a deal.
Okay. Well,
it's certainly not proof of great wealth.
I mean, he could have had a mud hut.
Yeah. That's a thing.
Jesus had a treasurer, though, Preston, Judas. His BFF.
Yes. That happens sometimes when...
We don't even have a treasurer.
It's true. Nobody's giving us great big wads of money.
There go. Jesus got great big wads of money. Ha!
So there is one passage where it talks about Judas being the one handling the money bag. And you don't fit large amounts of money in the little bag carried by one dude. And the way it talks about it, it feels like he's just occasionally taking this bag and emptying it out at the temple, that people are handing donations to Jesus because they're treating him like a priest. And Jesus doesn't want to walk around with money.
Because he's the famous guy.
Yeah. So Judas is supposed to be taking this to the temple. There's accusations that he would be taking some off the top for himself. I don't think this is at all evidence that Jesus was handling giant wads of money.
Any appropriately run not-for-profit would have a treasurer.
Yep.
And I know a lot of poor not-for-profits like ours. But, Preston, Jesus was consorting with the upper echelons of society, and they don't just let any slob get near those people.
So that's some tricky, funny business
Is that
here.
some mental gymnastics?
Jesus would occasionally force himself into areas where he was not welcome. That's what's being described here. The upper echelons of society did not generally like Jesus. There were a couple people in the Sanhedrin that would talk to Jesus. We hear the story about Nicodemus. But for the most part, they're not interested in him because he's tearing down what they're building. So there's no buddy here.
So he's the guy who snuck into the party wearing a chef's jacket.
Yeah.
Just so you know, if you ever want to sneak into a party, that is how you do it.
Yeah, Jesus consorting with upper echelons. That's a wild misrepresentation of what's going on here.
All right. But Preston, Jesus was miraculously able to command abundance. He fed the 5,000. He found tax money in a fish. He told Peter where the fish would overflow in his net, etc.
Yeah.
He just made it happen.
Oh no, there's a whole bunch of people here and they're going to be hungry today because they didn't come prepared for the long ass lecture I've got for them. Yeah, so we fed them. I guess it makes sense that because he was able to conjure food, he could conjure money. That doesn't mean that that's going to be happening every day for us.
I want to say something sassy, but I'm biting my tongue.
Okay. I don't love this point that he is just able to miraculously command abundance and apply that to the prosperity gospel. That doesn't feel right.
I mean, you could be wrong.
Okay.
Okay. And the last point they make is that there's, I guess, some reference to the businesses that each of the apostles owned or worked in.
So there was some government employees among the apostles. There was Levi, who was a tax collector. And then a good handful of them were fishermen. So if you own a boat and you have a net, you can go fish. And then you can sell those fish. So that's not a business the way we have to license businesses today.
No, I mean, it's definitely 2,000 years ago. They were probably a lot more loosey-goosey on.
Yeah, it's just, hey, I got some stuff.
Got some stuff to sell. You want it?
Because it's more than I need for my meals in the next couple of days, and all this fish is going to go bad. So, yeah. That running a business doesn't mean you're wealthy.
Oh, you know who can confirm that point? Me, as a business owner. Just because you have a business just not mean you're wealthy. It means you're sad and tired most of the time. Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
well, you've debunked, I'd say 4 out of the 6.
Yeah, sure. It's a lot different than our favorite monster, Mother Teresa, who believed mostly the opposite, that poverty was the real blessing, that if you would suffer, you'd be closer to God. Don't love that either, so I feel like the best situation is somewhere in between.
I mean, she was also hypocritical because she was wealthy herself.
Yeah, what a bitch.
What a bitch. Wow. All right, so you've given us some arguments against prosperity gospel. What does Jesus actually say about money?
All right. Well, I want to take a look at some of the specific verses that occasionally get used in prosperity gospel rhetoric. The first one, which I think is the most embarrassing, comes from Luke chapter 18, verse 12. It's been used a few times. It's not one of the most popular, but it gets used. And it says, I fast twice a week, and I give tithes of all I get. And if you're looking in a red letter Bible, these are red letter words. Jesus is speaking. He's quoting somebody who is supposed to be this righteous community figure.
What's a red letter Bible?
A red letter Bible is one, it's a Bible where just all of the words of Jesus are in red.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you want to flip through and find the words of Jesus,
exactly what Jesus
they
said,
will pop out at you.
Oh, nice.
It's great.
Or we can just read the Jefferson Bible too.
Sure.
Handy.
Except it doesn't just make it as
Jefferson
easier.
cuts out even more.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
But if you get a red letter Jefferson Bible, it's very short, a lot more red percentage-wise.
Yeah. All right. So, sorry, thank you for that. Carry on.
All right. So I fast twice a week and I give tithes of all I get is a quote from one of Jesus' parables, but you have to remove it from its context for this to really make the sense that the prosperity gospel preachers want it to have. Because Jesus is describing what a foolish man says to validate himself. The other half of this parable is this very humble guy who humbles himself to the ground before he prays, won't even look up, and just says, I want things to be good. That's about it. So we're talking about the words of a foolish man being quoted as defending prosperity gospel. Not a great start. Another one, same author, Luke chapter 6, verse 38, is a little more popular. It says, "Give and it will be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. With the same meter you measure, it will be measured back to you." This does not describe financial investments, no matter who tells you otherwise. According to the context from which it is taken, Jesus is talking about how you treat and judge people, whether with mercy or condemnation.
I just thought of like the rules of Wicca, or I mean, even the golden rule, right? That's what this boils down to: is anything you put out will come back to you threefold.
Yeah, that's kind of the deal. And so, if you put out positivity will come back to you. That's like being cheerful, being nice to the people around you. That doesn't mean give money to your pastor and hope that 3 times as much is going to come back to you.
Because for some reason it doesn't.
Never. A lot of preachers manipulate verses that ask the faithful to pay tithes and offerings. The best is the whole "will a man rob God" speech from Malachi chapter 3, where, of course, they have to ignore the context, that these offerings are meant to be stored for the use of the congregation in times of need. These offerings are usually food items. Though gold and silver are received as offerings, they are very quickly turned around and made to buy food.
Into food, yeah.
They're not hoarded to the comforts of the excess of the preachers or the priests. That's not the point. Israel was a lot more socialist than a lot of people in the Western Hemisphere, or the Northern Hemisphere, want to even think about. Yeah. Anyway, the promised blessing in Malachi 3 for faithful offerings is not more money. The words that you would get so much you couldn't possibly store it. How do you even make sense of that applying to money?
Especially in this day and age.
Right?
Unless you're literally Scrooge McDuck and just have, I was going to say loonies, $1 coins for our American listeners, for your wealth.
Have you seen the parody cartoon of Scrooge McDuck diving into his pool of gold coins?
No, does he die?
He doesn't swim.
So bad. But definitely something I thought about at far too young of an age about how that wouldn't work, and also disgusting.
Right?
I worked at a bank for a bit. Money is literally
Money
the grossest
nasty.
thing on the planet.
There's grosser things than even money.
Fair, but statistically,
the things you're most likely to touch.
yes,
money.
but also statistically, the 2 most common things found on money: urine and cocaine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to have a roommate who worked in a prison.
Yeah,
and they go through such an incredibly fancy detector
that you can't handle money and then go in the prison.
Yeah. Because have you been doing drugs? No. Are you bringing drugs into prison?
No, sir,
I just touched money.
I bought a Starbucks on the way with a $20 bill.
Well, so this roommate, he didn't drive his own car to work. He carpooled. So occasionally, pitch in for gas. Bad move. Do that on your way home.
Yeah. Anyway, so money, a la prosperity gospel, is gross.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to pull a full Mother Teresa on you either. But
yeah. Also, the number one thing, Jesus frequently told people to give up all their wealth and worldly possessions without any promise of, hey, you're gonna get this money back. Don't you worry. No. Give it to the poor, but spread it out. Don't you give it to one poor person. Don't make one poor person as rich as you were. It's trading places isn't the goal here. It's spread the wealth, help people who can't eat very well, who don't have shelter, get those things.
did you know a study was done here in Canada on homelessness? And if the person doesn't suffer from addictions issues, it only takes $8,000 to get someone off the street permanently.
Mm-hmm. It sounds about right.
Anyway.
Yeah, get them some clothes.
It's enough to get them
of their first
rent
and last month's rent, their
for-
deposits.
And yeah, that's all they need. Rent, fill their fridge, and some clothes for a job interview. That's enough to...
Yeah.
Anyway.
If the church was all living communally, which we know it was in the first chapters of Acts, they describe that, then they would never suffer poverty. They'd be taking care of each other because the food is available. It's legally required to be available. Homes are provided. It's pretty great. The only problem that, all of the English-speaking world has with this is that communism is a bad word.
I mean, yeah, it is.
Ridiculous.
I mean, we have our great Jesus is a Socialist or Jesus was a Socialist t-shirt in our spread shop.
So yeah, when you give us money, we give you something back.
We're going to dive into some of these prosperity gospel preachers, and they have grossed incredible amounts of money and possessions. If you want to check some of this out on the regular, there's a really great Instagram account called Preachers in Sneakers. That's Preachers in Sneakers.
We'll link it in our show notes.
Yeah. And this guy has put together this whole, he'll grab a screenshot of a preacher and then he'll find what they're wearing and pull the retail value of it. And it is outrageous what some of these people can, a $5,000 hoodie to show up to church in.
Well,
I'm all for looking good and looking professional, but...
Well, looking professional is fair, but you can do professional on the cheap. We posted a thing in our Discord, I guess it was a couple months ago now. Several months ago, considering the time between recording and publishing, that there was a preacher and his wife, I think. Now I'm just going from memory, that they got robbed and lost.
Oh, I remember this.
So many thousands of dollars in jewelry. No, it was millions in jewelry, wasn't it?
I think so. And it was just on their person.
Just what was on
They were
them.
mugged, yeah.
I'm not going to church in millions of dollars of jewelry. I'm not going to church in thousands of dollars of clothes.
Well, and again, we come back to what could you do with that money?
Right?
To actually make an impact, even if you kept it within your church community, which, sure, help your people first, but let's help go beyond.
Yeah.
Even if you just help your church community, if you were that selfish, could be life-changing.
It would go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you have millions of dollars in jewelry, bad person.
Anyway, let's start with preacher Oral Roberts. His net worth when he died was $117 million.
See, that sounds pretty humble, actually, compared to some of the things we're dealing with.
But, and maybe this is because I'm not a Christian and don't, I know you are, it's a 10% tithe and some give what you want. And so, I have no concept of this. But I look at that and go, well, Chris Evans is only worth $80 million. And here's some guy preaching the gospel every Sunday and he's worth way more.
For a preacher, having that kind of money is icky.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to get to some higher net worths too. But we want to start with Oral Roberts because he's considered one of the founders of the prosperity gospel teachings and he's one of the first televangelists.
I just remembered what part of his deal was, but keep going.
Jump in whenever you want, Preston. He implemented the method of directly mailing people for donations, so that direct mailing your home.
Yeah. Send me $50, please. I'll even put a stamp on the envelope for you.
He's a great grifter. He has a university named after him.
Like Donald Trump, but better actually, because Oral Roberts University is actually still around.
Wow. In 1980, he received a vision of a 900-foot Jesus. That's mildly terrifying. How big is Christ the Redeemer? I'm Googling this.
Not 900 feet.
I didn't think so.
So the image that I'm getting in my head, you watch The Eternals, right?
Yeah.
The Celestials. The big fella living inside the egg that is Earth. Jesus.
Yeah, because Christ the Redeemer,
Alarming.
for reference, is 130 feet tall. So this is 8 times that
Yep.
That's terrifying. That doesn't bring me comfort. That's just scary.
Yeah. Crazy. But you know what? It's a vision. It's just whatever. If you need to be convinced Jesus is bigger than you, maybe that's the way to do it.
This is inaccurate because we know he fit into a temple.
Right?
Bigger than a baby, smaller than a temple. So inaccurate. In 1984, he started selling action figures of the angel that visited him.
Yeah.
I kind of love that. And in 1987, he told everybody he would die very soon unless he raised $4.5 million. In the 2 weeks following, he collected $1.6 million of that. And I believe they did collect. So
for sure.
So he didn't die until later, because everyone does. But in this instant,
because people loved him so much. It's like, well, I can't have this preacher die. If Jesus threatened to kill him if he didn't raise the money, which is what the story was.
That feels like a dick move from Jesus.
Right?
I don't think he would do that.
I'm glad you feel that way.
I mean, anyway, sorry, you wanted to jump in with something on Oral Roberts.
Oh, no, it's the university. That's a big part of that $117 million.
Okay.
That value.
Yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't always easy going, but he made a lot of money there. Next on our list, we've got Kenneth Hagin, or Hagin. I don't know. I've never actually listened to the guy. I think it's Hagin. I'm just reading the name. Still alive. Net worth of $17.5 million. A little more humble than the last guy.
Still a lot for a preacher.
So much. But multimedia empire, I guess. Good for him. And he's considered one of the first prosperity gospel preachers, but not as big a deal as Oral Roberts. This guy has a hell of a conversion story. I thought it was really interesting. Problem is he doesn't have a whole lot of backup for this story.
He just made it up. That's what you're saying or implying.
I mean, I don't know. And the story is suspicious. But here we go. When he was, and this is the way he tells it more or less. I've condensed it, but it's still his own story. When he was born, he had a deformed heart and an incurable blood disease. He became paralyzed at age 15. People didn't even think he would live to 15, but he made it. And while he was stuck in bed, paralyzed, he read from the Gospel of Mark and then died 3 times in 10 minutes because of his deformed heart. Mm-hmm. And every time he died, he saw how horrible it was, but then he was revived. So I guess he's just being threatened of start doing good or you'll be tortured in hell forever. Need to be warned 3 times. Feels a little Dickensian, but that's what we get. And then the next year, his paralysis was healed after another deathbed revelation.
Praise be.
Yeah. And so he started his ministry when he was 19. And it's just like, everyone needs to know about this conversion story. Everybody needs to know how good Jesus is. His primary doctrine, not the atonement covers all sin and your life is worth changing. No, it's that if you believe hard enough, you will get what you are after.
That's literally just the secret. There's no Christianity in that at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's positivity, and positivity sells real well.
Yeah, one of the most famous prosperity gospel preachers is Joel Osteen.
I cannot stand this man.
Now you've just blown any chance of him being on our podcast.
He's 60. He has no interest in us.
So Joel Osteen has a net worth of over $100 million. He owns 2 homes, a yacht, a private jet, a Ferrari, and he's had plastic surgery estimated at over $30,000.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he doesn't look 60.
No, he looks great. And did you see Madonna's new face?
No.
Oh. This is not a visual medium, but I just made a face. So I will say Joel Osteen's work is very well done. Osteen doesn't talk much about God relative to how much he talks about us having God's power to help us get what we want. He's also a self-help author using the church model.
Pretty much, yeah. Just mega church, come listen to me tell you how you can improve your life without focusing on the things you need to change about your relationship with God. Just be more positive and make it happen. Yeah.
All right.
It's a little weird.
He avoids talking about things that politicians argue about to maximize the size of his flock.
Mm-hmm.
And so this doesn't risk losing anybody by saying anything that isn't fit for self-help book material.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that when asked, are Mormons Christians, back when there was the possibility of maybe having a Mormon president.
There's still people who also debate whether Mormons are Christian or not.
And it's
I thought you were
going to
say when it was a debate, and I was like, isn't it still? Anyway.
When people were talking about Mitt Romney,
yeah.
He's like, yeah, I think Mormons are Christians. He later admitted he didn't actually really know a whole lot on the subject, so he just kind of accepted it. He also does support the nation of Israel.
That's one's a bit controversial, but...
Yeah, we've talked about the nation of Israel and Zionism and how it's not technically fascist. That doesn't mean everything's hunky-dory, but it is what it is.
And Joel Osteen got into some trouble with the
Hurricane
Harvey, yeah.
Yeah. He did not open his stadium
of a church
to shelter people. And then he was asked about it later, and his whole press team was pressed about it for a while. And it basically just devolved into gaslighting of course we were open, except when they were talking about, oh no, we couldn't be open because of all the flooding, which is also not true. It's terrible.
Yeah, I think people really forget the WWJD.
Yeah.
I think Joel needs a bracelet.
Or a face tattoo.
That feels a bit extreme. He's put a lot of work into that face, Preston. Don't wreck it with a tattoo. But like a little bracelet that, kids used to wear. Mm-hmm. Jesus would have opened the doors to a mega church. Jesus wouldn't have had a mega church.
That's the trick.
But if he had access to a stadium. Next is maybe the scariest of them all.
Oh, this dude is terrifying to watch, especially the last couple of years.
Is our very favorite Kenneth Copeland. Kenneth Hagin, Copeland is connected to the Word of Faith circuit. He attended Oral Roberts University and ended up serving as Oral chauffeur and pilot.
Yeah, some tight connections here.
Kenneth Copeland likes flying and even scammed a bunch of money to buy a plane.
Yeah, if you want to Google Angel Flight 44, that was a whole big deal. There's trying to buy a plane to send relief to Haiti after the hurricane floods of 2005. So 2006, come send us money, we'll buy a plane, we'll send this stuff going. Kenneth already has planes and an airport and millions of dollars and doesn't want to show the initiative to do the work himself. Hey, everybody, send me money so we can do this thing. And then he never sends the plane to Haiti, telling people, oh no, the plane's not good enough. It can't make the flight. Bro, you have planes.
That could make the flight.
Yeah. Bad news.
Yeah. Mike Huckabee, in his bid for presidential candidacy in 2008, made several appearances on Copeland's show, mixing religion and politics in a really gross way.
Yeah. If you're asking people to vote you into political office at church, you definitely have forgotten what church is for.
Yep. In 2013, during the big measles outbreak, Copeland preached against vaccinations in particular and medical services in general. And that got even louder during the COVID crisis, promising that you'd be cured if you would just touch the TV when his face was on it. I don't know. I'm scared.
Yeah. Oh.
Right.
I'm just remembering videos I've seen of him of COVID-19. I banish you. It took a while to work, but
it did eventually. All thanks to Kenneth Copeland. He is also the richest pastor in America with a staggering $760 million net worth.
Yeah. He's been on TV for so long that he's full on celebrity status. But when we compare him to other entertainers, this is creeping up real close to $1 billion on this man's personal net worth.
Again, there's very few even celebrities worth this much in Hollywood.
Yeah. I don't know how you can collect this kind of money and still be counted as a good person. Spend it, donate it, make a difference.
And again, like, especially in your role.
Yeah.
Like, we know.
This guy has no idea what Jesus would do.
Right. Like, we know Jeff Bezos is a capitalist.
Yeah.
So is it great that he's accumulated?
No.
No, but that's his jam. But
Yeah.
if you're talking about Jesus and you're that wealthy,
This
Jesus
guy has
needs
no
to come
idea.
in and flip the pews at this church.
Right?
That'd be
And
great.
Jesus is a table flipper. We know that
We know
much.
that.
Yeah. So with his $760 million net worth, some of this is, his airport, his several jets. He has to have several jets because flying commercially is just asking for trouble. He calls it sitting in a log tube with an army of demons, which, that's a messed up thing to say about the people.
Everyone.
Who does he see as demons? I'll let you guess. He denies the 2020 election results.
I bet he thinks the gays are demons.
Oh, certainly. Certainly.
And the liberals.
Yep.
And feminists.
Yep. Women in general.
Women in general.
He's had a hard time maintaining positive relationships with women.
Which is familiar. I just like that term. Women who own cats.
Mm-hmm.
So which is familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kenneth Copeland. Scary, kind of gross, depressingly rich guy.
All right, we got 3 more of these. And I mean, obviously there's more across North America. But these are a handful of the most famous. But
yeah.
Tell me about Jimmy Swaggart, Preston.
Oh, so this guy has been a popular televangelist for a while, which is surprising. He's been associated with the Assemblies of God, which is a sub-umbrella underneath the Pentecostal thing. Yeah. In the 80s, he supported and promoted the Mozambican national resistance during their civil war, downplaying their very well-documented war crimes. It's weird to see state authorities committing war crimes against their own people, but, I mean, we saw America do that plenty just a couple years ago. They're doing a better job of hiding it more recently. And that's
hot take.
That's its own thing. But anyway, Jimmy started a feud with another pastor by publicly accusing him of cheating on his wife. Totally ruined this other pastor's credibility. But when this other pastor defended himself, he flipped it around and sued Jimmy for defamation and won.
Nice.
So that sounds an awful lot like Jimmy was making things up, which is why I'm deliberately leaving out this name of this other pastor to not even sully his name a little bit.
You're making things up again, Arnold.
Yeah. Jimmy making a bad name for himself. So this other pastor hired somebody to spy on Jimmy and caught him with a sex worker. Sounds like somebody's been projecting.
That often happens. We had this conversation on Discord.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. So Jimmy split from the Assemblies of God after the prostitution scandal got him defrocked. And Jimmy has spent more time with sex workers since. He's very old now. That doesn't mean he's stopped, but I can't prove anything in the last 20 years. He has a net worth of $10 million, which makes it easy to spend time with sex workers. But of course, too much of that, and that money disappears real quick. Jimmy's an interesting fella. He still has an audience. He still plays piano and everything. But he says that rock music is the new pornography. This is a guy with experience with both.
I was going to say, I think pornography is the new pornography.
Right? His experience with both does not make him a reliable authority.
Nope.
I thought it was really interesting, though, relative to his issue with rock music. The 91 Genesis song, Jesus, He Knows Me, is said to be a satire of televangelists in general, but more specifically Jimmy Swaggart, and also Jimmy Bakker, who we should definitely talk about next.
Is it Bakker? I thought it was Baker.
There's 2 Ks.
All right.
So I say Bakker.
I'll say Bakker. So Jim and Tammy Bakker, as of 2022, they only have a net worth of $700,000. But at the peak of their ministry, it is estimated that he brought in $1 million every week from
They had
viewers.
a huge audience for a short time.
For a short time. In 1979, Bakker was investigated for misusing funds raised from his television program.
I mean, yeah.
Because he paid off American actress Jessica Hahn, who he had allegedly drugged and raped.
Well, she was also working.
She was
for
working
the church.
for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. He was convicted of fraud.
Mm-hmm.
In his book, I Was Wrong, he admits that he hadn't read the Bible all the way through until he was in prison.
Yeah.
That's really bad.
I mean, you don't have to read the Bible to be a preacher.
Or
you should have to.
you also, or even be a Christian. We've had this conversation too. It was
Yep. But as you know, reading the Bible doesn't make you a Christian either.
no.
So
It means you've enjoyed a good book.
yeah, pretty much.
In 2003, Jim started a new ministry condemning the prosperity gospel, instead preaching apocalypticism, scaring people into buying massively overpriced freeze-dried food.
Yeah.
Prosperity gospel bad, buy this stuff good.
Yeah. Don't worry about collecting wealth. The world's about to end. Okay. Well, thanks.
His show is condemned for taking advantage of the most vulnerable groups in our society.
Yeah.
And
He's still a grifter.
he's a class A grifter, like best grifter, because he also sold colloidal silver during the pandemic.
What a guy.
What a guy. Just apostle material.
Yeah. But we're not just going to pick on oldish white guys.
We're going to pick on my
fair.
favorite named prosperity gospel preacher.
Creflo Dollar.
Creflo Dollar.
Great name for somebody teaching the prosperity gospel. We can't leave him out of the list.
That's why I included him, because I love the irony of his name.
But his net worth is only around 27 million. It's not most of a billion like a couple of the guys we've talked about so far.
Yes.
He has a very expensive home in New Jersey worth about $2.5 million. I mean, housing market shifts, but that's where the number sits more or less. Another in Atlanta, another in Manhattan. He's got 2 Rolls Royces. I don't actually know what the price tag on a Rolls Royce is, but I'm told it's much steeper than a Ferrari.
They're not an everyday car.
No, they're not.
I'll Google that while you keep talking
Okay.
about Creflo.
He's got himself a private jet because, why would you not have a private jet if you've got houses all over the country? Well, mostly just up the East Coast. Not all across the country, but you get it. Anyway, Creflo Dollar Ministries got an F from Ministry Watch for financial transparency, which, I think that statement should be examined for more churches.
Yes. A Rolls Royce goes anywhere, this is in Canadian dollars, from $350,000 to $500,000.
Okay. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and he's got 2.
Yeah. For when one's in the shop.
For that kind of money, I hope it's never in the shop. Or the shop comes to you.
He's got 5 kids. What if one of them wants to take one out for a ride? He's still got to have the other one.
That's fair.
So,
I drove a 1990 Toyota Corolla when I needed a car from my parents.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Creflo Dollar was the subject of a Senate financial probe.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's
bad.
weird. I don't know why the Senate gets involved in individual people's finances like this. It's like Congress going after Biden's laptop. Leave Hunter alone. Yeah, I'm not saying he's a good guy, but why is Congress so invested? It just feels dumb.
Okay.
Let somebody else take charge of that. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, Creflo also has some anger issues. About 10 years ago, he had a serious breakdown where he choked and beat one of his daughters. Lucky for him, criminal charges were dropped after he took some anger management courses. Kind of a high-profile guy to have this go public like this.
Yeah.
Bad news. Interestingly enough, just last summer, in July of 2022, Creflo came out apologizing for misleading people, saying that the Bible doesn't ask people to pay tithes, which is a really weird thing to say about a book that does ask people to pay their tithes.
Just not in excess or for something in exchange.
Yeah, it's
Do you think he's read the Bible?
I don't know. I recognize he's apologizing for misleading people, and that's a good thing. But
He's still misleading people.
It feels like he's deliberately misleading people, but maybe he just doesn't know.
Maybe he just doesn't. Maybe he just
Maybe
hasn't read the Bible.
I feel like what he's trying to say. I have to lean into a positive interpretation of this. That he's trying to say that God didn't ask people to do what he's been asking people to do, which is solid there.
Okay.
And maybe that's part of why he's got a relatively low net worth compared to the other guys we've been talking about. So of these many prosperity gospel preachers we've been talking about, a couple have changed their ways. And a couple of them
Are worse than ever.
Just getting worse. Yeah. It's a wonderful world we live in, filled with some people that are really hard to share this planet with.
I mean, it's been a minute since we've talked sort of about Christianity broadly, but it's amazing how many interpretations of this faith there are. And I don't know how you feel as a Christian, but I kind of go, how can anyone be confident they're right when you have such a broad spectrum? And I mean, there's spectrums in all religions. Christianity just feels like the broadest of them all.
Yeah. The spectrum we have in, say, Hinduism isn't so establishment heavy. You've got a whole bunch of people who believe a whole bunch of different things, and they all kind of blend together a little bit. But there's no the Church of Hinduism that tells everybody what to believe.
Well, in Hinduism's, because it's panentheistic, correct? Where everything is God and God is in everything. It almost allows for that wiggle room.
Yeah.
Because if I think you're a part of God, then some of it must be right. You think right. Picking up what I'm laying down.
Well, and if you actually believe that God is in everything and everything is part of God, you're going to treat your neighbors nicely.
Yeah.
Which is evidence that not everybody who is a Hindu is actually a true to the core believer. But it's not a Hindu exclusive problem.
No, but I just think even in their inherent belief of Brahma that it allows for this wiggle room. Whereas Christianity, when you go to this is the way it is, but then you go down the street and they say this is the way it is, but it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more dogmatic
That's a good way to
establishment in Christianity than most other groups. And that's really part of the problem. And then we have these people who say their version of their favorite dogma that gets to bring them millions of dollars. I mean, it'd be nice to get that kind of money for the work we do.
Right. Hint, hint. What a great way to wrap up this episode, Preston.
Yeah. So we do have a Patreon. In exchange for money, we actually share more with you. We have Patreon exclusive content. We have our book club. So you get more of our time.
More of our energy and more of our knowledge.
And of course, we have fun because that's super important to us that we have lots of fun. We also have our shop where you can buy merch, clothing, bags, bottles, whatever you need at a price that's responsible for high quality products. We've also got a place where you can just join us for conversation. If you want to know more, call us out on something, whatever you feel. Join us on Discord, Facebook, Instagram. You got options.
Yeah. And with that, don't be sucked into the prosperity gospel.
Don't do it.
Give what your heart tells you to the causes that you love.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Peace be with you.
By the late Middle Ages, the Christian prophecy had fulfilled itself.